Are we going to see Tesla stock skyrocket or crash? Tesla's big day is coming this Tuesday, and Tesla investors are looking to get more information on the things that matter. The robotaxi rollout, the more affordable vehicles, the battery constraint, and supercomputer progress. Is it going to be more good than bad? Well, it depends a lot on Elon Musk and Tesla's guidance. Could it be a turning point? Or should we expect more bad news to come? So we've got the bulls here with us today. We got Tesla boomer mama, the queen, Alexandra Mertz. We got Jeff Lutz, also known as Mr. Incredible, the rational bull. And joining us this week is Larry Goldberg, the golden bull. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Herbert.
Hi, Herbert.
So the question I want to ask everybody right off the bat is, do you guys think that this update on Tuesday is a do or die moment for Tesla? And, there's a few people that are believing that things have been, all the bad news have come already, and that things are only going to turn around. And others are saying, no, we're going to expect some even more bad news at this quarter. Why don't we start with you, Larry? What do you think? The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. I enjoy listening to bears.
We're looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
Yeah, we only earned 50 cents a share the last quarter. I mean, come on, guys. Oh, my answer is meh. I mean, I don't particularly think that this is an important quarter. I think everything hangs on the news that Elon gives us in regard to, full self-driving robotaxi, the new products coming, the battery situation in regard to volumes this year and next year, and where we are with energy. And gives us a sense of what the future holds. I don't think the financial results mean anything this quarter, and probably even next quarter, and maybe even the whole year. I think everything turns on. I talked about this being a new Tesla. Elon decided some time ago, a couple of years ago, that he was going to turn Tesla into a very different company. And we're in the midst of that transformation. And he spoke about it 2 quarters ago. He updated us a quarter ago. This quarter, I think he needs to start giving us much more detail, filling in the gaps in our understanding and giving us a sense of how our progress is going to come. And I think that is umpteen times more important than the quarterly report.
Thank you, Larry. And then Jeff?
Yeah, I think I agree with Larry on a lot of that. I think a lot of the news about Q1 has just been out there. Remember, I've reminded you a number of times. We had Rolling Stone and Teen Vogue and Better Homes and Gardens talking about Tesla sales in January. So I think a lot of the bad news is out there. I think we've also reached peak bad tariff news as well. I mean, I think there may be some back and forth, but we heard some very good rhetoric from the president today, and I think that may have peaked out. Now, I would say the jawboning may have peaked out, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But I think some of the downstream effects may haven't. But we've heard about sales, we've heard about tariffs, we've also heard about Tesla being in relatively better shape. Again, not unscathed, but in relatively good shape in terms of that. Some of Tesla's competitors are not. I think the call is going to come down to Elon's tone. And that's going to be interesting because the last couple of calls, he's really carried the day. They've been some of the best earnings calls, in the company, because while some of the basic things around, revenue, sales, and earnings, there have been issues as the company's been going through this transition, whether it's model lines or whether it's just this transition of where their revenue is coming from. Elon's done a very good job of putting all that into perspective and teeing up what is on the horizon and what it means to the market capitalization of the company. The other thing about earnings, I don't think the analysts have picked up on, is Tesla puts cash and free cash flow ahead of 5, 10, 15, 20,000 units of shipment. So in Q4 of last year, they were fine and dandy about not hitting over 500,000 units. and really really bringing the inventory down, bringing the working capital down. And that was a higher order bit for Tesla. So I think you're going to see a mixed bag of things because they had to re-ramp, obviously the Model Y in the quarter, inventory issues in the beginning, lower production, lower sales. I also think you're going to see some cutoff of inventory in March, meaning stuff that was built that didn't land in a customer's hands for revenue. So you're going to see some of that as well. It's going to be noisy, but it's going to really be about what's happening over the next 90 days. Are we going to land FSD unsupervised in Austin? I believe they're running that release internally to Tesla. They may have vehicles in Austin doing that as well. So I think they're on the way, but it'd be interesting to see what they updated on. And same thing with the newer affordable vehicles. I think it's going to be a really important time for that, especially if you believe that the way tariffs could work is there could be kind of short-term supply-driven inflation, but not your technical, classical, long-term inflation as a result of very steep price hikes with inside of a window where you don't have the ability to react as a manufacturer. Tesla coming out with lower cost models and just having models available to ship, because 3 or 4 of the top 10 in the United States that are Tesla competitors are built outside of the US, and their economics won't work with a 25% tariff. I think those tech sectors tariffs stay on. I think the auto parts tariffs are in question. I know we're going to talk more about that later, but I really think it's going to come down to Elon's tone. Does he have concerns about the macro economy in a highly tariffed world, or is there something that he knows and he's a little bit more confident about the future? But Tesla is shifting away from a future that is going to be less dependent on bending metal and more dependent on software as a service, and software that's quite frankly installed and already in these economic zones of all these various areas of the world right now that would just need to be lit up. So it'll be about Elon's tone and how he sees the future.
Yeah, I do agree what you're saying. A lot of it is possibly already built in, that it depends on Elon's tone. But I think that because we're so close, it is so close. The Robotaxi launch, if they continue to confirm that it's coming, the more affordable vehicles, even if it's slightly delayed, it's still happening this year. If they can paint a picture of all the things that are about to happen the second half of this year, it could mute any kind of negative that comes. So our very own Alexandra has been asked again to be interviewed at Bloomberg this Wednesday, right after the earnings call. I'm so happy that we have retail analysts like you, Alexandra, to represent us. Do you think it's going to be a positive? When you show up there, you're going to be talking great about Tesla, or is it going to be, fighting fires?
I mean, I will for sure try to bring some perspective to it, because these analysts that look at, today's results and the stock price in the next 15 minutes, that's not my attitude. And I'm really grateful that Ed Ludloff and the Bloomberg team appreciate that we bring a retail perspective to it. I mean, there's not much to add to what Larry and Jeff said. It was just stellarly summed up, and I hope I have you both next Tuesday afternoon to help me prepare for the Wednesday. The one thing I'm also looking forward to is hearing him on battery supply. Remember, in the last earnings call, he already called out that there were issues with battery supply. Now, obviously, that could be an even bigger topic. So that's one of the subjects I want to hear, on the present. All the rest should be really directed to the future. June, new models, launch of the Austin Robotaxi network. So, there's so much to come in the next couple of weeks, including that proxy. We're getting really close now. We should be in the next 10, 12 days. So I do believe, he can, in a positive spirit, hopefully, really lead us to these grand ideas. And just, again, commenting much on the Q1 results doesn't have much value now.
Let me play a game with you guys then. I want to ask you, what could happen? So let's say that they come out and they say that the more affordable vehicles are delayed. It won't happen until Q4 this year. How big of a deal would that be?
Not much, I don't think. Could be wrong, but...
Delayed for what reason? Delayed for tariff reasons, supply chain issues?
Oh, good question. I think there's rumors that it could be delayed that it was already delayed, let's say a couple of quarters ago. It wasn't, there's rumors, right? We don't know. I don't know.
Never let a good catastrophe go to waste in product world. When things like this happen, everything gets blamed on, the biggest thing out there. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear that, even though Tesla's relatively insulated, they're not, all it takes is one part to be tripped up by that. But yeah, it could be for a number of, and it could also be that they've got unbelievable, demand that they're gonna have to deal with on the 3 and Y. I keep going back to, I think others are going to have trouble, building vehicles profitably. I don't think this whole thing is played out. I think there's a pretty huge game of chicken going on out there where you can't have CEOs talking, you can't have people talking, and they're trying to get a carve out from the president. So I think it's going to be it's a very interesting time. It's also going to be confusing because a lot of these OEMs had a ton of inventory. A lot of them had over 100 days of inventory. They target about 45 to 50 days of inventory, and they had double that. Ford has double that. So Ford had a big sale, friends and family discount, everybody's throwing roses at each other. They're sitting on a bunch of inventory. That's why if you're sitting on a bunch of inventory and you have forward macro uncertainty, you want to move it, and you want to move that product right away. And I do think there's a lot of questions about how product is going to move through suppliers and into manufacturing. There's a lot of spats happening back and forth out there. I know we'll talk a little bit more about it later. So how could it? I think this is a very unpredictable call. If Elon is focused on full self-driving, focused on the future of the company, I think it'll go well. But I think there's also just concern about how many cars are going to be sold in North America. There's estimates of a few 100,000 lower this year to up to 1.5 million lower. 1.5 million lower would be a 10% drawdown. Not the end of the world. Great financial crisis. We were 30 to 60% drawdown. But anyway, it's something to look out for.
Jeff, March was a very high sale month for OEMs.
Everybody,
at a 17.5 million rate. So perhaps there was a good drawdown.
Correct. I think inventory has drawn down.
The other potential news could be that, I'm just playing out the devil's advocate. What if they say that battery constraint is a real issue and it's going to restrict our ability to create as many cars as we wish to at the end of this year?
They did say that. They said that on the call. And nobody, so it was one of my questions that got into the top 5 for say. I've heard a number of people say that the question's terrible. Okay. If you don't want to, be concerned about what the company says, then don't. But it is an issue. Remember, when they said that on the call on January, I think it was week 4, they knew what they were going to build in the Model Y this quarter. They knew their production plus or minus, 5% in the quarter. They knew what they were going to do. So they have a constraint, and now look what's happened with LFP out of China. Nobody knows the tariff number right now. Is it 140? Is it more? Because remember, there were existing lithium-ion tariffs that would stack on top of the fentanyl tariffs, and batteries were not excluded in the exceptions list. So batteries are getting really expensive. Watch the Tesla Megapack site. And I'm looking to see if there's going to be any movement in lead times or pricing. So far, I haven't seen it. And I'm sure Tesla, they have very good people in their supply chain. And I'm sure that they've been getting ahead of it and bringing in inventory. I would hope so.
Yeah. And then finally, I think we all agree, right? The most important thing is whether or not Elon is positive, if he's in a good mood. I'm not even going to bring up the idea that Robotaxi could be delayed, because right now, as of yesterday, everything's looking like it's still on track. So there's no signals here at all that it could be delayed. But, Elon, he keeps getting, these women coming up and saying, right, Wall Street Journal just wrote another article about another woman that's saying, hey, you got me pregnant or something like that. So it's a lot of it's false, a lot of it's nothing, but you never know. He might not be in good mood. But I
actually think he is in a jolly good mood. He has been going with President Trump to the UFC matches with his son X. I honestly don't feel him in any way constrained or bad-tempered or whatsoever. His interactions on X are as frequent and as funny as always. I don't have this fear of him being in a bad mood on Tuesday. Obviously, anything can happen, and there may be bad news to convey, which is never a fun moment. But I don't have any precursor who would give me that impression today.
The only thing I would add is when Elon's on that earnings call, he's not the head of Doge. He's not the first buddy of the president. He's the CEO of Tesla speaking about the Tesla business. And it may be his opportunity. It may be his outlet speaking in Tesla business terms to let the world know what he thinks about, some of the economic changes that are happening as a result of these tariffs. So that could happen. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe he's already had that opportunity to air all that out. But I mean, he certainly did not hesitate to air it out what he thinks of, some of the people involved in constructing the policy when they went after him and his business. So anyway, it's just a wild card. It's a wild card that's out there. We'll see what happens. But I agree with Alexandra. Like, there's a lot of reasons for him to be in a good mood, and there's a lot of reasons for people that are into this name to, quite frankly, meaning this company is shifting away from money that comes in purely from bending metal and being, on your hands and knees, waiting to see what happens in each economic zone. It's moving away from that, and it's accelerating as fast as they can build these models and get real world AI out there. Sometimes people just seem to step back and think of this is it in terms of real world AI. There's really nothing out there that's in production volume that's out there working. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but there's a lot to be excited about on that.
Yeah, we're headed into June. That's when the Robotaxi program is going to launch. Like I said, it seems like it's still on track. And then we're going to talk about FSD Unsupervised, which is a post that Elon just made. Before we do that, though, this is a post that Tesla AI dropped, right? They showed photos of Dojo, what looks like Dojo supercomputer clusters. Looks great. Any thoughts, you guys, on why did they do this? What's the significance of dropping this today?
There are two key advances that Dojo represents. The one is Tesla's unique Ethernet and communication structure between the Dojo clusters. And the other is just the scale, the wafer scale of the chip. It's still a generation or two behind NVIDIA in terms of the processing power, but those two advantages can lead to some significant advantage for Tesla. And I think we may learn a little bit about when Dojo 2 will be operational and what the plans are for Dojo 3. That would be one of the questions that I would like to hear. I didn't see that on the list currently, but it would be very valuable if we could get a better roadmap for Dojo. And the fact that they've teased this picture could indicate that they are going to come out. By the way, that picture was probably Buffalo, New York, not Texas, not Giga Texas.
Any other comments, guys?
I mean, it's great to see. I think Elon comment that was doing about 10% of the workload. It'd be great to see how that continues to expand and grow. It doesn't have to be the best processing power in the world. It has to, at this point, but yeah, this is exciting, especially in a world where you don't know what's going to happen with pricing. You don't know what's going to happen with supply availability. There's geopolitical tensions. There's all kinds of, issues out there. And not that Dojo is insulated from that, but it's good to have your own vertically integrated solution running. So we'll see. It's exciting.
I just did a show with Brian Wang, and yes, Dojo has been delayed, but isn't it incredible? It's coming at a very good time, because everybody's trying to buy NVIDIA chips. Tesla's trying to, NXAI, trying to expand as fast as they can. Now that if you can add Dojo to what you're buying, that's what's going to, to really turn just to the point where it's hard for anyone else to catch up. But more importantly, it's what Tesla needs right now for both FSD and robots. So it's perfect timing.
We've got a massive building coming at Giga Texas. It's huge. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been watching Joe Tech.
What you're talking about, the potential Cortex, another Cortex? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's gigantic. It's very hard to tell what's going to go in there, but it's one huge building, and they are more than doubling the power supply, the energy supply to the site. So
that's why you're suspecting that it is a supercomputer warehouse.
I'm pretty sure. I think, I don't know that the entire building is going to be dedicated to it. It could be, but the fact that they're adding that many megapacks
around it
is a very strong indicator. Very, very strong indicator.
I love that too, just for Tesla's Megapack business as well. They're really demonstrating strongest, biggest supercomputer being powered by, their battery storage solution. It's great for them. It's great for this industry. Great for EOS as well. I love the two working together. It's very necessary. Nuclear's, 3-4 years out probably from a production availability perspective, and megapacks are here. Tesla's got a unique engineering solution that they basically programmed on the fly to get the Memphis cluster up and going. So this is it's such a great vertical for the megapack business as well.
But the battery is not let me rephrase that. Nuclear is not a replacement for the battery or vice versa. Battery is a very necessary supplement, even if you have nuclear. Even if you have nuclear. So I don't think
even out the power.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing is that they've discovered that the batteries are very important to smooth the power supply to the clusters. And so that's one of the secrets of the Megapack, is that it enables the power supply to be maintained at an extremely steady level. I guess it's not a technical term, but that kind of gives you the picture. So
whenever something like this happens, sorry, complete your thought.
Yeah, I'm just saying those batteries are critical to large-scale clusters, regardless of what the source of energy is.
I was just going to say that it's like, do you ever wonder, like, did Elon know that AI data warehouse is going to happen and that megapacks would be needed to do this, or it just so happened that luck turned out his way? A
lot of luck over the years.
Yeah,
you have to look at Elon's philosophy of business over time to understand that, because he's working from first principles, he's building brick by brick the ultimate, edifice. And so each brick goes back to first principles, and that's why they fit so closely together and so well together. That's the bottom line.
Okay, let's move on. This one of the big news that happened this week, I thought was very important, was of Tesla AI dropping videos that all Model Ys and Cybertrucks coming out of the factories are driving themselves to the parking lot. And then Tesla themselves, the account, posted this up, and they said, one day it'll drive itself right to your house. Elon posted and said, no, it's not going to be one day. It's going to be this year. This year, these cars will drive themselves to your house. I can't stop playing these videos. They're so good. We haven't heard from you in a while, Alexandra. What's your thinking about when they said that this year these cars will drive yourself to the house unsupervised?
And my first question was where? Because if it is in Texas, be it, right? If a new Tesla customer in Austin orders his car and the car then drives from the factory to that home and self-delivers, maybe this year. Everywhere, not yet. I mean, I wish, and that will come, but it's not going to be everywhere.
These are just beautiful videos.
It's fabulous. It is, right?
This year,
it feels like a dream.
This year, a car will deliver itself in Austin before the end of this
in Austin,
year.
I agree. In
None
Austin,
of us here can buy one to test it out ourselves. We got to move there, order it, be one of the first.
We got Xander.
Xander.
Xander doesn't have enough trucks yet, right? Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla moves these products all over the country, and then from Austin, Berlin to other delivery centers. So those delivery centers could definitely trigger a vehicle to self-drive itself to an owner's home. So this could happen everywhere, quite frankly, at some point.
There's legalities. It can't.
Eventually, it can.
Eventually.
Yeah, not this year.
Once it's become national, then the remaining problem is the miles it puts on the car. Because from Texas or from Fremont to the East Coast, there's a minimum of 2,000 miles. So
I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're still going to, there's still going to be freight bringing these units to distribution centers. I'm talking about in your city picking up your vehicle. That experience may start. And somebody also, I brought up a great service experience this morning. Somebody said, well, at some point maybe your car just drives itself into service and drives it back home if you're nearby a service center. So these are all logical things that could be, again, in the future. Regulatory approval, got it, but all the building blocks are there.
So there's this that brings up exactly this perfect segue here. There is a job opening in Austin for a robotaxi operation, so diagnostics engineer. So this person is in the vehicle software organization, and their job is to create software that diagnoses it over the air, real time, and then to solve the problem through software too. So yes, maybe they'll need to be driven back to some service center, but also maybe it can be solved through software.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to manage the fleet, and there'll be metrics and operational metrics around this. I put a post out, Herbert, too, just about FSD awareness. I don't know if we have a chance to bring it up or not, but Bill Ackman did this huge investment in Hertz, and it all became public over the last 24 hours. The stock is, I think, more than doubled. And he put a long form post out today. It's one of those typical ones where you need the longer phone to read it. But what was an interesting line in there, he talked about, contacting Dara Khosrowshahi, who's the CEO of Uber, and saying, hey, what if, you leverage this large fleet you have of vehicles and eventually, doing an autonomous vehicle fleet. Let's talk about how we do that. I'm thinking to myself, well, what commercial products are out there for consumers that can be converted into autonomous vehicles, this decade? The answer is none of them. So I just found it interesting because in one context of his post, he's talking about them having too many Teslas and they bought them at the peak and so forth. And the other context of the post was, what if we can do this autonomous fleet? That in his post there nested, and it's a Bill Ackman post, so it's going to be long. You could consume the rest of the show.
But my question is, why would you need this triangle of Hertz and Uber and Tesla? Why wouldn't, if Tesla doesn't want to do 100% of it, why wouldn't then Tesla and Hertz partner? Well, what do they need it for?
No, but that wasn't even. I'll finish. The point is it feels like Bill Ackman's completely aware of what Tesla's building. If you read the post, he's contacting Uber about an AV partnership, nothing to do with Tesla, by the way, just in general, like leveraging the Hertz fleet. And I'm thinking to myself, well, isn't he aware of what Tesla's building and what they have? It just shows you like he's a major market maker, and there's either he's just completely not aware of it. If you read the post, it'd be like he's not aware of it, or he doesn't have confidence in it. It's one of the two. But in the same breath, to be calling the Uber CEO about leveraging his fleet of vehicles for an autonomous fleet when those vehicles are not lit up with any capability. There's no dormant hardware, and there's no software on the horizon that would make those vehicles autonomous. I just found it interesting.
But there's nothing to stop Hertz buying up Tesla cars and using them in a fully, autonomous way once they are autonomous.
They can, but they'll cost more.
Yeah, it would cost them more, but they would still be very competitive with Uber, and they have a huge distribution. They have got service centers already established. They've got operational centers already established. They've got the infrastructure.
You mean Hertz has the infrastructure?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, in the whole thing, I never understood, and I've had this discussion for at least 3 years with Gary Black. What's the game plan for Uber in all that? People always say, oh, they have the operations, they have the addresses, they know at what time, where, and whatever. Yeah, sure. But that's the easiest thing to understand. That learning curve is much quicker than having autonomous cars or having the infrastructure to manage the cars. I mean, Hertz, I can understand still.
Yeah. In that letter, in that ad for the operations guys, they talked about their operation center. So they're already established and they're operational in that center. So that's a very important point. It's a very important.
Is this what you're referring to, the mission control and operations hub, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's Tesla indicating that their hub is operational and they're running. It'd be very interesting to hear what they have to say about this at the meeting, at the company announcement.
Yeah, same thing on the Semi. When we were at the Semi event, we met the woman who's in charge of building up the fleet management team for Semi. This was a couple years ago. So Tesla's definitely thinking ahead on all these things. In all of these models, whether it's, you think of the Tesla vertically integrated model, think of the Hertz model, think of a Hertz Uber model or Uber only. Tesla, by vertically integrating the stack from the base layer of silicon all the way to the cleaning process of the vehicle, once they get that to scale, theoretically, and they've taken each one of those layers apart and done them in a cost-effective manner, once they're at scale and once they're fully utilized, they would theoretically have the best cost structure and potentially be fractions of the others, because the others have to go somewhere else to get these things, and then they have to go pay them a margin and then import that margin back into the unit economics. There are no free lunches.
And they don't all mesh together. Tesla has it all.
No, and the last 2-3 years, I just saw nobody making any progress, right? You would have expected, with Tesla leading the charge, that by now others would have different models for I mean, in China maybe, but in America and in Europe, I don't see anything.
Well, Waymo made progress, right? Waymo actually have operational
3 locations. Yeah,
but that's
they have
progress.
Miles.
They're showing real progress, and they've ordered a whole new model of vehicle. We'll see how that goes, but I mean, they're definitely showing some progress.
I think to show progress, you need to show that you've got a supercomputer, and whether you want to show that you can do this through simulation, but you need some sort of neural net. And there's only 3 companies in China that have started this path a year ago, but no one else. And so Uber CEO has come out and said that our plan is to have many different autonomous cars, and we will just use our platform so that when somebody orders a car, we can choose any of these cars. Problem is, it relies on many different vendors being able to offer autonomy. And so that's the question, right? Some people think that it's a commodity, and 3 years from now, every car will be autonomous. And that's just so, that's a huge disconnect between Tesla long-term bulls and others who think that, oh no, this is something that's copied. Everybody will copy it eventually, very quickly, 3 years. So,
well, it'll be interesting. One thing's for sure: the science has progressed very, very rapidly, and Tesla struggled for 5 or 6 years before the science really got to where they could make very significant progress. So it's going to be faster for anybody who does it right from scratch now. I trust the Chinese will do pretty good at it. So it's a question of how Tesla scales, how well they operate, how they've got the RoboCab, which I think is a great winner, and I think it's a very, very distinct edge for them, and it's in the most important TAM. It's the largest TAM in the business, so we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't discount the other players entirely. I would be a little reluctant to just dismiss them.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing that just dropped today, which I think is nothing, but you guys tell me what you think about it. But basically, this is Tesla Optimus, okay? The account that runs the humanoid bot program for Tesla on X dropped this, and it's a photo of Tesla Optimus, right? Mr. Roboto, Domo Arigato. That's a song. Looks gorgeous, but it turned out that this is actually something that was shown at a poster at the We Robot event. So was this either like some sort of Easter egg that, hey, this is what actually the Optimus Gen 3 is going to look like? Or it's just something that they've already done before? And why are they doing this?
The We Robot event had a lot of Easter eggs. Remember how they called the different shops all these names? And I mean, I don't even remember all of them, but there were lots of them. So it could have been one, like the Easter egg we had lately in that video where we had maybe the new model on the wall. So there's always a reason why it is set up the way it is set up. I just wonder why what was it? Domo Arigato. Arigato is obviously Japanese. So what is this? Is this a song? Domo Arigato?
It's a song.
Punk song or?
Oh, it's a song from 80s, 90s, 80s probably, maybe 70s.
Mm-hmm. This is cryptic.
Sticks.
Yeah. No, look, We Robot October. These things all have time phases or fences around them. So this could be the Gen 3 where they got to industrial design. They did renderings, and that was 2D rendering completion, maybe 3D rendering completion. Maybe they've gone through the full industrial design phase. Then you've got to go out and engineer that, and then be able to build physical prototypes. So that could be the Gen 3, or it could be nothing. It was just interesting. If I'm Tesla and I look at, they're doing all this development on Gen 2, well, what would you try to do with Gen 3? You would try to figure out how to take mass out. That's probably the highest order bit. If you take mass out of it, you can simplify the actuators. You can take cost out of the actuators, hopefully simplify the amount of rare earths that are inside of the product. So that has to be some of the goals going from Gen 2 to Gen 3, but Gen 2, they're going to be doing a bulk of the training work on. So, so we'll see. It could be nothing. It could be the industrial design for the Gen 3 robot. And again, I would hope it would be lower in mass.
Yeah, well, we talked about Robotaxi. We talked about the bots, more affordable vehicles, macro and tariffs. If we want to talk about the stock, right, it really does hinge on macro and tariffs, right? I mean, if macro turns and it's still a risk-off environment in the second half of this year, generally, even if you have good news coming out of a company like Tesla and saying, oh, we got Robotaxi, we got this new vehicle, it won't do much to the stock. It won't do the pop because people aren't ready to invest in that. Unless you guys think that in spite of a recession or a downturn, people will still make the stock pop because it is such a big deal. It's such a different level.
Even though, Herbert, that's exactly the wrong thinking. If you think there is a recession and you would not invest in robots, which will bring your labor cost extremely down, that would be the worst decision ever not to invest. The question probably is more, are the traditional branches of income of Tesla in danger? Meaning, will people purchase less cars, right? That is possible, because it's always possible in recession that people purchase less car, or that there's still this supply chain interruption and we have all the consequences of that. But honestly, I don't think the stock price would suffer much. I mean, what do I know? It could, but I think people are now clearly focused on the new ventures of Tesla, right? Energy is now a complete analytical topic for these analysts. They are looking at it, and the same way they're going to look at FSD income and then bot income. So I don't think, first of all, I think a recession is going to be very short. I can't imagine the recessions, if you look over time, are getting shorter and shorter. And people are obviously still traumatized from the grand financial crisis, but it's not, the COVID recession was very short. And if there would be one, I don't expect it to be even that length. But But if the recessionary decision would be not to invest in upgrading your factories and purchasing bots, you're doing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. The two of you guys, are you guys expecting a second half of this year going to be negative?
Outside of the government, healthcare, and 5 or 6 tech companies, half a dozen tech companies, we're in a recession. Have been in a recession for over a year. I know that the auto industry popped last month, but that pop has to do with tariffs. I think the auto industry has been in a recession. So most of the United States has been in a recession for the last year and a half. It hasn't been a short recession. It's been a very, very tough, lingering process for them. The only thing that's kept the GDP numbers looking good is government expenditures. And government employment is, in fact, you take all of government, central as well as all the localities, state and localities, their employment increased, accounts for all the increase of employment in the last year and a half. So I think that the notion that we'll be in a short, sharp recession and that somebody's going to come along and spend $1.5 trillion or $5 trillion or $3 trillion to get us out of recession, those days are over. And in any case, we've got this gigantic $6 trillion refinancing to do, and I don't know where that's going to come from. So I think that it's not going to be an easy couple of years. It's going to be a very tough couple of years. And I'm not looking for any aid from the Federal Reserve in the short term.
Yeah, this is a Rorschach test for people. Honestly, if you just look at the last year, the GDP numbers, the employment numbers, I mean, you can attribute it to something. And trust me, I'm not happy that it's been government spending, but technically not recessionary. Certainly pockets of recession. 16 million auto units last year is not recessionary in the United States. But you can see pockets of things forming in the housing, for example. You see pockets of things forming. And then when you do take that government spending out, we're starting to see what's happening. We're starting to see what happens as people are basically seizing up right now as it relates to tariffs. And I mean, there's big CapEx decisions that are just not being made. I'm having these conversations every day. It's not only the big CapEx decisions, it's do I order, am I going to produce 400,000 units in this quarter? Or am I going to produce 250? If I produce 250, that's probably on the recessionary side. If the U.S. auto market drops from 16 million units to 14 and a half, most of the tier 1 and many of the tier 2 suppliers are not profitable in those situations. So yeah, we're teetering on something here that's I would say very dangerous at this point. But I mean, there is a path out of it. And I think there's 3 things, coming. You've heard it from the government talking about tariffs. Then they're talking about tax cuts. Got to get to the tax cuts where the interest rates aren't at some huge level. So, and then deregulation. But these things take time, and they take time to manifest in the economy. And then we've run interest rates extremely high. None of us are, I would say, necessarily macroeconomic experts. But we have been around industry, and we've been around, whether it's banking or manufacturing or software, we've been around major industry for decades, and we can certainly speak to what we're seeing. And I think all the feedback's been correct. I would just say we're kind of teetering here, and it'll be interesting to see the decisions that are made. Can we make them quickly over the next couple of weeks? Because I would tell you, there is a huge disconnect of what's happening with supply and what is happening with some of these economic tariff decisions. They feel almost completely disconnected. And I agree with Alexandra, the COVID recession was short. The supply shocks and lasted for 18 months or more. And the supply side drove a lot of the inflation that we saw. And now if you layer another supply shock driven set of events, I don't know if people can just take those price increases on again with with a lack of supply. So now you may run into an issue of lack of consumption. Now you've slowed down, and now you're in, kind of more classic recession mode. But I think there is a way out of this. It's just a question of how quickly we can make a turn on tariffs, how quickly we can do tax cuts and give relief to companies. And there are bright spots too. I mean, the consumer in with all of this going on, they still made decisions, and they're still spending at a fairly good rate. But I would say there are pockets of concern. Home sales, for example, in various parts of the country. Sorry, and so we'll have to see what happens here. We'll have to see. These tariffs at the levels that they're at, if they stay on, are going to have even a 10% tariff rate across the board, and then 25% sectoral tariffs. Those are healthy numbers. Those are big numbers. They're so immediate that there isn't enough time for you to re-engineer your product or onshore it to escape the tariff. It's the immediacy of it is the actual problem. But if companies had time to do the work the right way, to re-engineer, to onshore under an escalating tariff regime, knowing if I don't do it, I'm going to get hit, that seems like a more fair game, and it also may get the same objective. So we'll see what the president ultimately does. He has a history of pulling back on this stuff. He has a history of getting some results, but then also kind of pulling back from the brink. So let's see. That's terrible in supply chain world, but he's got to do what he has to do as well.
Okay, but back to my question, guys. If there is a recession, if we continue to have a tariff, conflict, things are still very uncertain, macro's bad. We're not, does anybody here think that Tesla stock could still break through because it's robo-taxi, because it's bots? These are so big that it could break through?
You mean breakthrough to the upside?
Yeah.
You mean breakthrough to the upside?
Despite
if we have a recession, we won't break through to the upside.
I don't think so too. Yeah, I don't think any of us here agree, right? It's really dependent on the macro first. That has to settle first before anything that Tesla does is going to cause it to.
Because this year there won't be, huge financial gains to be seen yet.
Right.
For the stock to really go above the current all-time highs, you need to see subscriptions to FSD. You need to see results of the network. You need to see statistics in real life on the take rates. You need to see, So there are so many things that just need confirmation that we are certain about, because we understand the model, but that is not going to trigger through to the stock price until the larger market understands it. So no, I don't even expect for 2025 any major stock improvement. I hope we get back into the 300s, because we shouldn't be where we are. I just feel this is the wrong place to be at the moment. But when I hear people going 700 at the end of the year,
right.
It drives me crazy, because it suggests things that are so unrealistic.
Agreed. That's what I was trying to get at. Do you guys anything different than that?
No, most of the macro shops have taken their S&P targets way down, and they tend to be behind, right? Tend to be behind in their upside calls, and they tend to be behind in their downside calls. But at some point, this meets. So the only strange things for Tesla is they are changing their business in terms of where their sources of revenue are coming from. And, those SaaS multiples, they will get looked at more favorably. And I do think this is pretty unique. I do think the sector tariffs for auto final assembly are going to stay on. That's going to have huge implications for Western European imports and then the U.S. automakers that build in Mexico. There's 3 or 4 of the top EVs in the U.S. They don't have a business. After Q2, they'll burn up some inventory, but they won't have a business.
Why are they staying on? I thought President Trump said he's going to give them a reprieve, delay.
Yeah, do you think
probably on the auto parts?
Do you think Trump would ever
auto parts
allow GM or Ford to be threatened by that? I think he has to bend on that issue. Politically, it's
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, politically, it would be catastrophic to drive Ford or General Motors to the wall. He could care less about the Germans. He could care less about the Japanese. He could care even less about the Koreans. But the American manufacturers, he's got to protect.
I agree with you. I think the sector tariffs are going to stay on. Are they 25%? Are they 10? I still think it has huge implications for them. So we'll see what happens. Remember, I mean, in 2018, he went through with that tariff regime, and it was fairly devastating for the U.S. farmers. And then a lot of aid money had to be helicoptered in. So there were good things that happened, but there was also this thing of like, he actually did go through with some of these things. And then there was a lot of aid needed later on. So, and these automakers were getting financial incentives prior to the Trump administration, for EV transition. It's interesting that they're still in this predicament in terms of the amount of supply they get outside of the U.S., right? It's strange. That was all U.S. money. It was $26 billion of loans and grants from the Department of Energy. And we're still sitting here today. And if you look at it on a part content basis, not on a number of vehicles basis, just the percent content, that's how tariffs are measured. I mean, it's well north of 50% of the contents outside of the U.S. I would estimate it's closer to 70% outside of the U.S. So this is a big deal for the U.S. auto industry to overcome. I can't see him going through with the component level tariffs. But right now they're on ex-USMCA. By the way, just because it says ex-USMCA doesn't mean every part in Mexico is exempted. So there are things that that they want to transition up to the U.S. that are built in Mexico that are auto parts that will be impacted. So they need to clarify like what the actual policy is. But yeah, Larry, he has a history of pulling back on these things. So
yes, he does. Yes, he does. No doubt.
We'll see.
Alexandra, I wanted to ask you about Tesla stock. You do a very good job of keeping track of who's shorting the stock. Where are we at today? And institutional ownership. I know you haven't done your most recent, but what's your sense of where we're at today?
And that's actually a good point because they should come out in the next 2-3 days. So I'll be able to do that and we'll publish them. I don't have them ready yet. I did them at the end of the year. Remember, we had a complete shift of the short sellers. The traditional names had given up and have stopped shorting them, but I haven't done them for end of March. They should come out now. I will do that again. Sorry that I don't have that handy yet.
And then institutional ownership, wasn't it also last time you did this? It was very clearly now institutional majority.
Yeah,
owned?
I mean, it is crazy how at the end of the year, actually, institutions had jumped into the stock, right? Remember, that was that euphoric moment. Trump was elected. He hadn't taken office yet. Elon became the first buddy, and you had a real move of institutions into the stock. And we had end of year a much higher number of institutions, which is a little bit, sweet sour for me because that brought the retail part below the 40%. So I always like to have, I call it my retail base. It's not mine, but I just play queen for a second. Being strong and having a weight, right? Because remember, they're gonna be important decisions to be voted on, I think, in this proxy, but certainly if it's not this one, then next year, for example, about preferential shares for Elon. Remember the 25%? That's something that could be tackled now. So there are a couple of subjects where it would be really good that we have a strong retail base to be able to vote. So the March numbers will be interesting because, these people lost money. If they went into the stock at 480 and we're today at 250, they may have had stop losses to get out of the stock, and we'll have probably a better picture of what to expect for the votes. You have to know that when you have a high institutional shareholder part, you need a lot more massaging of these votes, meaning, Robin Denholm, Elon, other people of the executives have to go and visit these people. And, it's much more of the corporate game, which they played last year because the June vote was so important, but which is certainly the last of Elon's priorities. And so if important subjects are in the proxy to be voted on, then they have to have a whole cycle again in May of visiting the BlackRocks and the the Vanguards of this world and the Fidelities, and you're making sure they vote the right way. Because if you have one stockholder that has 8, 9, 10% of that vote will matter. And so again, we'll see. I'll know a little bit more once I've done the analysis of end of March and once we see the proxy, because maybe all these important topics get delayed by a year. I don't think so, but we'll see. And then who will be among those that have a real big influence. And that's a good reminder. Everybody who, it may actually be already too late, but everybody who has Tesla stock, make sure you have it. You don't have it lended out, because around these days, this week will be the date of record of your Tesla holdings to give you those share voting rights.
What do you mean by don't have it lended out?
Well, if people use their Tesla stock as collateral for their options, it then depends on each individual agreement that you have with your broker. But usually what you do, or if you're on margin is a very good topic for that as well. If you do purchases on margin, at that moment you give your stock as collateral to your broker, and depending on your broker agreement, not all of them do them, but most. That gives the broker the ability to seize the stock from you for this time and actually lend it out to others who are looking for stock for a short period. And then if that falls on that date of record, you may think you have 1,000 Tesla stock, but once you look at how much you can vote on, it could have been lended out, and then it's for the person who is carrying it at that very moment that has the voting rights and not you.
Okay. And so you remind us, the proxy should drop by the end of this month, right?
Yeah, well, last year's proxy was on the 29th of April for a shareholder meeting on the 13th of June. So usually you are within 5-6 days of those dates, right? So that would be 29th of April this year. And then whatever date it is, a fortnight before, 14 days before is the date of record. So last year it was on the 15th of April. That is the date that they look how many stock you held, and that gives you your
the right to vote.
Rights.
And you think that this is, you said it could be this year, it could be next year, but let's say giving Elon preferential voting rights, because now that we're in Texas, they could do this. And then he wants that because he wants to have the voting right to control 25% voting, not showing ownership, but voting rights. And so that could happen, this voting, shareholder votes.
Could happen anytime. It doesn't necessarily need a shareholder vote, but it would be clean to do one. And then, I mean, they could just announce it too, that there is now a B class that has 3, 4, 5 times the number of votes compared to an A class of shares, and that Elon converted some of his A shares into B shares. But it's much more of a legal aspect than anything, but it is clearly in the realm of possibilities this year, and it's certainly something he wanted. And I think it's actually for us retail investors very important. Now you have to distinguish. There will always be questions for which Elon and Kimball cannot vote, just by the nature of things, right? On his own compensation or stuff that really affects him personally. But on all other matters, of course, while he's an insider, he has the same vote. So if he has shares that have 3, 4, 5 times more voting power than Class A shares like we have, well, that gives his votes all this 25% weight, and then add that to the 30-40% of retail votes, and we're good. And he doesn't have to go and clean the door handles at Fidelity, Vanguard, and BlackRock.
Okay, I think I got you. Yeah. Okay, so that's important. So we'll see if that is. Is there anything else that could be very, very important?
Well, we could have the vote on XAI. We could have. If what we asked for last year in August, remember Gully first at the earnings call, and then we wrote this letter that had, I think, 1,300 signers. I don't remember the number. Don't nail me on that. Where we said, we want the board to consider XAI. We want them to make clear how they find the price for it. And then for a long time, we were in this period. We filed to incorporate in Texas, but we weren't sure that Delaware let us go. That has then now been cleared. So there's actually no reason to not put it in now, right? We're clear on Delaware. We're gone from Delaware. We are in Texas. So this could be a very good topic to bring up. While we were under Delaware, it had to go through this whole special committee finding the truth procedure. I'm sorry, I'm so sarcastic about it because it's just so ridiculous what Delaware imposes on their companies now. But let's just say for a moment we did that. That would have meant that the board missioned one or two of their board members to explore, how to value XAI and how much it would be healthy for Tesla to invest into XAI. Then they would have come to the conclusion, this is the price we're ready to pay, and this is the amount we're ready to spend on it, brought it to the board. Then the board would have said, okay, we agree to that, but we want to bring it to the shareholders. Then it would have to figure in this proxy that's coming out, and then it's for us to vote on it. And then once we voted on it, if it gets the majority, I don't think this needs a supermajority, so just a simple majority, then we could see it. And there again, it would be a question if, since XAI X now is part of Elon's companies, is Elon allowed to vote? I don't know. So who knows? I mean, this is going to be a whole chapter of analysis again once we're there, but it could be one of the questions in the proxy. And then there are the board members that are rotating, that are coming up for elections. I didn't check whose turn it is this year. So there are a couple of interesting topics that are going to come up. It's not Robin, it's not Elon. I don't think it's Kimball. No, we did Kimball last year. So it's more of the less known board members that are coming up.
Can I ask you a question? Or just your thoughts on probability? And this could be way out in left field. Are we getting closer to the point where we should have this X Holdings conversation? Because now you've got X company that is, back to, it's recovered, right? It's in good shape. It's growing. You've got XAI, which is growing like a weed. And we see all the synergies between engineers, mega packs, the clusters, just there could be tremendous synergies between these companies. And then you have Tesla and you have the stability of Tesla. You have the cash hoard of Tesla. I don't want to bring in SpaceX, Starlink, communications and so forth, but is that out there even as a possibility? I know we're talking in smaller chunks, but these things are just so much further along than when we had this conversation a couple of years ago. SpaceX is north of $350 billion. We think XAI is going to be north of 75, going to $100 billion or more. That could be on its way to, who knows, being $1 trillion. Is there at some point where this just comes together more cleanly as a holdings company with tremendous cash and Elon is kind of the head of it?
Well, that's a very good question. I think the simple fact that the only publicly traded company being Tesla is a major reason for it not to happen, right? Because you would actually either be obliged to make the holding a publicly traded company, and so that would then trigger all this reporting and scrutiny of the other companies that Elon certainly doesn't favor, or you would have to take Tesla private and the whole thing becomes private, which is not going to happen either. So I think that is the first issue. The second is he would not have entertained, in my view, he would and should not have entertained the idea of Tesla investing into XAI if that was the big goal, right? Why would you start intertwining little bitsies if the whole big goal is bringing them all together under one structure? So I'm certain the least favorite thing of Elon's life is having to deal with corporate governance.
Yeah.
I just think this is so against what this man can and wants to do. And there are many things that he does that he doesn't want to do, but they are necessary. But corporate governance is just such a thorn in his entrepreneurial spirit, in his forward-looking spirit, having to think about these constructs and who you're offending and how you're lawyering up against it. And I mean, I hope not, right? I just hope it doesn't have to end like that, because I want Tesla to stay a publicly traded company. I love my Tesla stock. I don't want to be, bought out and that was that. I don't want to pull the other companies into this heavy scrutiny that we have to go through. I mean, just think how many hundreds of hours I had to talk about corporate governance. It's not as if I love doing it, but I mean, somebody has to talk about it, right? And so it just...
Come on, you love it.
It's actually the bad side. No, it's the bad side.
I would vote against that, guys. I don't want to be bought out at this point. The whole point I'm doing is to hold the stock for 10 years when robots are
right?
like...
I don't want to lose it.
Who said you're getting bought out?
Right?
No, please don't. How does it work? You get shares of X Holding. Yeah. You get, which is now includes SpaceX, includes Starlink. Yeah. Starlink is going to go split off on its own. So that's another.
I think it's much more likely that we're seeing a Starlink IPO than the X Holding concept.
Yeah, maybe. I don't debate that. It's just an interesting thing to think about, because when we had this conversation 3 years ago, Starlink was nascent. SpaceX was, sub, 50 or 175 billion. Yeah. Now look at these things. They're unbelievable. And they're still growing like weeds. So just wondering how much
Elon's
more powerful that would be as an entity.
Brilliant.
Sorry?
Starlink, Elon's vision is it's all alive today. It's all happened now. Starlink is massively successful. Now Starlink's going to actually help all of our cars and all the bots.
Yeah.
And it's not only about vision, it's also about execution. When we left France 10 years ago, there was satellite internet in France. There was a little provider who had, worked with Ariane and put some of those satellites up there. It worked crap. I mean, it was better than nothing in rural zones, but it worked crap. When Elon tackles it, it works better than anything else. I mean, and that's just it. He did it with EVs. He did it with satellite internet. So it's not always as if he reinvents the wheel. He makes the wheel better. It is such a force of innovation and, healing this world, making it better, that I just can't understand how people can hate on him. It drives me crazy.
Oh, great conversation. My God. And so now, Alexandra, you are on vacation. You're not allowed to go. Yes. What's going on? Four weeks?
We're going to Europe. We're going to Europe for 3 weeks, going to France and Germany and Italy. And then we're ending up in New York because our youngest is graduating from NYU. So we're having the graduation, and I'm back second last week of May. Yeah. So for a couple of sessions, I won't be here. Herbert, you'll do without me.
No.
And I mean, what pains me the most is that we'll have the proxy. Yeah. So, I give you that. If there's something crusty in the proxy,
okay,
I'll appear out of Europe.
Okay.
Because
cool. And then certainly you got to be back for June, because I think we don't know the date yet, but when will we know if there is a June, first of all, the shareholder meeting, and then we're assuming that a shareholder meeting, we're going to be able to take robo-taxi rides, maybe, if they timed it all correctly, right?
Correct.
When
we may even have a robo-taxi from downtown to the factory.
When will we know when the shareholder meeting is going to be in Austin in June?
Well, I mean, it usually is a Thursday. Let me get my calendar out. I suspect it to be.
Well, when will they announce it? Like maybe on Tuesday on the current company update? Will they announce it then?
Before.
Will they just be a letter sent out?
No, it will be when the proxy comes out. When the proxy comes out, you have the date on the first page. I think it's going to be like the end of this month. June.
Still 2 weeks from now, and then we might get the proxy
know in
out.
about 10 days. Where will I be in 10 days? I will be traveling from France to Italy, but it's okay, yeah. And I mean, I can just see myself sitting in this gas car, driving down to Italy and reading the proxy on my phone. We'll get there. That's
Tiny
okay.
little thing, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this is exciting. Everything's coming. This is it. Everything's coming. June. More affordable vehicles. We got the Robotaxi. We're going to get thousands of bots the second half of this year. So let's hope that we have a good macro environment.
Can't wait.
I just wanted to add, because I thought about this a lot the last couple of days. This chaos that President Trump created, and he did, I'm not taking this away, and I could have lived without it. But he did that before, and he goes like that into negotiations. If you read The Art of the Deal, he loves to just break it all down, shake everybody up, everybody's screaming, and then he tones it down. And now, expectations from other people are on a much more realistic level, and then he starts negotiating. Do I like it? No, I don't. Do I think he went overboard? Do I think he thought this through? No, I don't. So, and I hope, and I think we have that, Elon is so close to him. He's on the plane with him. He's going to all these events with him. He's constantly in Mar-a-Lago. And if there's one person who he obviously listens to, it's Elon. And if there's one person who knows about supply and has done it over and over and over again these last 20 years, it's Elon. So I do believe, we're getting somewhere. I think the meeting with the Italian Prime Minister was good. With the Japanese delegation was good. This may still take a couple of, bellyache weeks, but I'm by far not as pessimistic as Larry was. I mean, I feel I'm saying this over and over again. Remember, every time we do a show with Larry, I feel I have to say I'm by far not as pessimistic as Larry, which is true. And I mean, that's a bit unfair because he's not here anymore to defend himself. But it's but I'm very hopeful for the U.S. economy for at least Q4, maybe already Q3 of this year. And I really believe this is going to jumpstart to very good results after that.
Let's hope you're right. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you, Alexandra, the queen, the best. Appreciate you.
I have it here.
Gonna miss you, Jeff. Thank you so much. This is always a powerhouse panel. And then, of course, thank you to Larry, our special guest this week.
Herbert.
Thanks everybody. See you guys again next week.
Speak soon.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.